morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have more news coming up about the Asgard Divide event that's coming up around the corner. Now, we did get a sneak peek as well as some additional information regarding the other 3 champions that we're going to be taking a look at today. So, I'm going to go ahead and compress them all down into one video, and we're going to do a deep dive discussion about the champions, anything that this video has to offer, as well as what we can do with them and what we're going to try to do with them if the means to be able to acquire them are accessible. So, with that being said, we did get a sneak peek video that's about 6 minutes long. We're going to actually do a live reaction to it with you guys. And let's see what they got to bring to the table.
It's time for another sneak peek. And this
update sneak peek
for all you fans of mythology out there. Introducing
look at that. I think that's Thor.
Biggest events, the
yeah, it is.
Divide.
I think I saw Odin over there too.
Norse mythology has always been a major source of inspiration for our beloved barbarians. From their appearance to their spiritual home in the kingdom of Frost.
There goes Loki. We did a breakdown on him already.
Bitter cold. Brave
warriors, hey, see Zargal over there hanging out too? Sure.
So, to continue that Norse
I believe this is Freya. Freya looks really cool.
Introduce 4 unique legendary barbarian champions. And
then, of course,
event dungeon with a brand
Odin.
New variable gear set. This event will be
Gungnir, I think is the name of his spear, by the way.
From August 21st until November 22nd.
Okay, we knew about that already.
Time to explore everything we've got planned. All sounds pretty exciting, right? Let's dive in for a closer look. First up, please give a warm Tolarian welcome to the stars of the Asgard Divide. Meet Loki the Deceiver, Thor Feyhammer, Freya Fateweaver, and Odin Feyfather.
I'm curious about Thor, Freya's, and Odin's kit the most. I'm looking forward to seeing what they got to do.
Fae are ancient and powerful spirits that have existed for a very, very long time. We won't focus too much on the lore here, so dive into their champion bios and check out the dedicated event lore for more. Now, for the really juicy information, how do you get these mighty champions?
That's a good question.
Start with Loki the Deceiver. You can get this elusive trickster for free during the Loki Chase event.
Yep, you know he's going to be a daily login, yep.
Simply log in on 7 different days between August 21st and November 22nd to add Loki to your collection. However, you need to have started...
Let's pause here. I think I see it. I'm going to actually remove the closed captions here for this one, but... throughout the day or the next week following the initial grab of Loki, you can do stuff to acquire not his 2-star, but all the way up to his 5-star blessing, which is actually really, really huge. And then on top of that too, you can collect additional rewards. Like it looks like they have an avatar, some experience, silver, some basic miscellaneous resources that you can use. And it looks like you can do campaign, dungeons, faction wars, arena, and clan boss to get the amount of points you get, and in total you'd get about 1050 to finish it all out. So it's about on par with what you like what we experienced with Adeline, where you do miscellaneous things that you would normally do anyways, and you generate points. I don't know if there's anything that would be like restricted because like you can only get a certain amount of points per day. I wonder if that's going to be an imposed restriction or if it's just like go at your own leisure, get there, and then you have it. I will note that they are giving Bannerlord's accessories as well as a Primal Shard in that last rotation too as well. So that's kind of nifty. Primal Shards are pretty valuable because Mythics are very strong. So if you could save up and stockpile for when they do those 2x events, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Not bad at all. Okay, cool.
The Loki Chase by October 24th.
The blessing is a nice touch.
This way.
We like it.
Don't worry about reaching day 7 by that point. You'll still have until November 22nd to get there. Just make sure that you've started the Loki Chase before October 24th. We'll have a dedicated champion spotlight video for Loki where we'll dive into his skills in more detail. But for
did that on my YouTube already. Check it out.
Highlights to get you excited. The chase
Shameless
will continue past day 7 so you can get Loki to level 5 of Awakening.
Yeah, that's huge.
As a bunch of other sweet rewards in phase 2. It works exactly the same as the Adeline chase. His skills are all about
polyproc, lucky
misdirection, placing Veil or Perfect Veil on himself and his allies while manipulating buffs and debuffs. Oh, and he can completely evade enemy skills. Yeah, you're not going to want to miss out. Loki the Deceiver will be a great addition to your collection for any game mode.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Mess with enemy buffs,
I think he's going to be good in Hydra.
And PvP battles. But where would Loki be without Thor? This mighty warrior is an all-out attacker, self-buffing himself with increased attack and increased crit damage buffs before unleashing a myriad of
so he does damage leading up to that.
Foolish enough to stand against him, and his hammer, me all.
So his main damage ability or his setup ability, for lack of better words, maybe like an A3 or A2. It gives him increased attack, increased crit damage, but it also does damage too as well before attacking.
He'll block damage and unkillable buffs and destroy an enemy's resistance stat. He'll be available to summon from shards throughout the event, and he'll remain in the summon pool after the Asgard Divide ends. That applies to all 4 of these champions, by the way. They'll stick around and can be summoned well after the
we love seeing
Divide
yellow
comes to an end. A wise and steady presence on any battlefield, Freya will be
this is the one I'm excited for.
From shards as soon as the Asgard Divide event starts. No need to wait. Go grab this defensive powerhouse and protect your team with some divine foresight. And no event themed around Norse mythology would be complete without the one-eyed wanderer himself, Odin. Father. This titanic warrior can only be summoned via special summon events during the Asgard Divide, so keep one eye open.
Let's hear that again.
This titanic warrior can only be summoned via special summon events during the Asgard Divide, so keep one eye open. Get it? One eye.
I got it. First off, corny, but we take those. So I wonder if Odin's going to be a time-limited champion. Is that what they're trying to imply? Or is that like... my understanding is that the champions themselves were supposed to be designated as available. Their initial releases where you're going to see a lot of special events tailored around them, which makes sense, right? But then after the whole Asgard Divide event is finished, we should be able to acquire these champions even outside of this event. So I'm actually kind of curious of whether or not that is something that we need to be precautious about.
He'll also be the boss of the new...
Oh, this is the new boss area. Look at this. Okay, so they mentioned that we're going to be going against a bunch of different champions, as well as Odin himself. And it looks like you see it. Like I see you, Carl. I'm not exactly sure who that is. Is that that's another barbarian? To be honest, with you. It looks like all of these guys are barbarian because that's Elder Skarg, Scylla the Drakes. Of course, Odin, I believe, might be also a... I think the entire Asgard troop is going to be pretty much barbarian-based anyway, so that's kind of a nice little nod. And I was kind of curious because we saw behind in the background, they have, like, Alil, I see Oboro, I see some other champions that you could tell by their silhouettes who they are, and, you know, kind of they're distinct, right?
And he'll join the regular summon pool once the event dungeon is closed.
Okay, so there you go.
Dungeon.
He did say, okay.
Yes, this is a brand new time-limited dungeon we're introducing with the Asgard Divide.
Interesting.
It works like other dungeons. There's 30 stages with increasing difficulty and sweet rewards that can be earned on each stage. Initiating battles will only cost energy, so no special keys.
Wait. So, all the way up until 30 stages, and then you can get not only accessories, but artifacts as well. But look at the drops themselves. What is this? Critical rate, accuracy, curing, daze, crit damage, and then finally pinpoint. I thought this was only going to be a artifact drop rate for pinpoint, so it's very odd that we're seeing critical rate, accuracy, curing, daze, and crit damage. In particular, these sets are introductory sets is what I would say in terms of like their initial value. So they're not bad by any stretch of the means. There's some that are very niche. Think curing, for example. I'm not very fond of curing personally. Daze is also one of the type of CCs you can get from a set that I feel like is not as desirable as what I would want from something like a stun set or maybe even a provoke set. I think those have a little bit more higher value because they're case use. The what do we call it? The value you get out of them in other areas of the game, specifically like Hydra, for example, or maybe in PvP, depending on how you look at it, or like Sin City, for example, right? Accuracy is good. It is superseded by Perception, which you get in Faction Wars, which is now also getting superseded by effects like Feral, which is a variable set that introduces being able to use accessories in addition to artifacts to create a set bonus. So, you know, there's levels and tiers of where, like, sets are becoming outdated in a sense, and accuracy is one of those introductory sets. Now, with that being said, let's be methodical about this. They did announce way ahead of time that they were going to be establishing this form of content to be accessible by a wide range of players, both from early game to end game. So having a balance of stats or balance of gear that's good from early to mid to late and end game makes sense. However, I think maybe the reason why they're trying to put drops like this, that I feel like these sets are a little bit more introductory, is due to the fact that they are going to give accessibility to a lot of different ranges of accounts. So they don't want it to be too easy to power creep. However, I would argue that since this is a time-limited event, and their capability as an early game account being able to get to the very top of this would be not without its difficulties, the need for having to introduce what I would consider to be lackluster or introductory sets for late game, in-game players doesn't seem like it matches up. And we're wanting pinpoint. Let's just be real. That's the main reason why we're going to be farming. That's the main reason why people are saving resources to be able to commit to this, to try to get what they're looking for. The only thing I could recommend by playing is that they either retcon this and make sure that it's less of this up here. Like maybe the drop rates, this would be like a good way to do it, where like the drop rates are in favor of pinpoint as you get to the higher tiers, which is what we want, versus like the lower tiers, maybe you're a little bit more likely to get these pieces, instead of it being just a huge grind RNG fest like all the other dungeons. And the thing is that if this is a time-limited event where you can only get it during a small period, it doesn't really make as much sense to incorporate these extra ones, because we're already going to be scrambling around trying to get as much as we can out of this for pinpoint, especially for those that are intrigued by that set. So I'm not particularly fond of these. I think I understand some of it, but the way it's implemented doesn't seem like it's like kind of like how every other normal dungeon is. So you have a static amount of chances to get any of these pieces, not specifically one in favor of the other. And then, of course, the rank and rarity will range and go up the higher the difficulties, but the amount and the percentages and the values of them are very microscopic to the point it's negligible. So I kind of don't like that, but at the same time, too, I also understand. So I would be curious to see how the drop rates are going to look like, and that's something maybe a player can inquire and provide some insight into. I don't know. Let's see what else we got.
Initiating battles will only cost energy, so no special keys, no time or daily limitations, and you can super raid and multi-battle to your heart's content.
Energy is a resource that is very, very stressed on and strained on in everybody's account. So, like, that's another thing that's kind of like, I get it, but at the same time, too, like, maybe you can make it easier for us. I don't know.
So grab your 5 best
My
champions.
own little complaint there.
Go kick the butt of whoever's boss.
Yo, all my homies live in Missionaki. I see you.
Won't be limited to
Yo,
just
Stone's
the
getting
Asgard
rosin, by the way.
Divide.
That's wild.
No. We'll be reopening the event dungeon for future large-scale events.
Couldn't be me.
And introducing new bosses who are champions associated with that event. We can't wait to show you what we've got cooking. All right, we've talked enough about the event dungeon.
Ooh, we get to see some of the abilities. Okay, so the boss himself, Odin, is going to be the one that we're going to fight. He has the ability to attack one enemy. Has a 50% chance of placing a Berserk debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be placed on bosses. Damages scales off of attack. Removes all buffs from all enemies, so it's a strip for us. Has an 80% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and also has a chance to place stun. That's tough. It attacks one enemy on his A3. Before attack, he steals all buffs from the target. The damage inflicted by the skill depends on the target's type. So it will inflict damage based off of a target's attack if they're attack based. Same thing with defense, and the HP and support will be maximum HP. Interesting.
Let's get
this attack will ignore 100% of the target's defense. Huh? If the target was killed by this skill, revives a random dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn
into its first resident.
Damage based off of any max HP. Oh my goodness.
The same skills as he'll have as a champion, plus all the standard boss immunities, as well as the temporal chains and lightning cage blessings. At lower stages, he'll only have level 1 of these blessings, but it'll rise to level 6 at the highest stages. Fear the Fey Father's power. Odin can and will constantly remove buffs from his enemies before landing precision strikes with his spear.
Any cleansers?
Gungnir, dealing massive single target damage that'll ignore defenses. Oh, and watch out for the new Berserk debuff Odin can place. It'll increase the champion's damage dealt and damage received. Make sure you read the in-game boss guide before you take on the Fey Father. If you manage
so you do more damage, but you also take more damage.
You'll receive a suitably awesome reward. As part of the event dungeon, you can earn gear for a number of different artifact sets, including a new event dungeon-specific variable set called Pinpoint.
Yep.
As the name suggests,
we heard about
it's all about accuracy and speed, with all 9 pieces granting the wearer an additional 60 accuracy and 32% speed. With 4, 6, and 9 pieces of gear equipped, the Pinpoint set also grants the wearer either 1, 2, or a massive 4 stacks of intercept. It's the perfect set for champions that want to hit hard, fast, and without having to worry about any pesky...
Intercept is a very interesting buff because it can also negate the aspects of polymorph, and that's probably what's really, really exciting about this set. However, it is difficult because you have to make a choice in your build composition now, and that's the thing that I think a lot of players are trying to navigate, having a defined understanding of what they're looking for. But nevertheless, I think it's a set worth exploring, which is why I've been saving my resources to explore it and dive into it. So hopefully, if we can get pretty far in the progression side of dungeon of the like event dungeon, we should hopefully be able to get some good access to some good pieces and maybe put a build together to see how it feels. Maybe not only in PvE, but PvP as well. So
Crowd
very, very
debuffs
interesting.
Like sheep. We've no doubt the Pinpoint will get plenty of use
I beat them
in the
to
arena
it.
and against debuff-heavy bosses in the Doom Tower or Cursed City. Since it's a variable set, you can mix and match it with other artifacts for truly unique combinations. Let your imagination run wild. One last thing about the event dungeon. We'll be launching a dedicated tournament focused on raiding it so you can get even more rewards. The event dungeon will open its doors from the beginning of the
Also, it's nice to show that every single stage is going to be Void Affinity for Odin himself specifically.
Right
Something funny to know.
October 24th.
Guess whose birthday that is?
Which also happens to be the cutoff date for starting the Loki chase. Handy, right? And that's everything we've got for you in this sneak peek. The Asgard Divide schedule will be packed, and we hope you're as excited as we are to welcome these Norse-themed champions to Teleria. So sharpen your axes and raise your drinking horns in a toast to the Fae Father. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay...
True. All right, not too bad. I actually think this is kind of like one of the more interesting ones that we're going to be able to experience when it comes to dungeons. I'm not a big fan of like having extra sets to have to worry about, but I guess there is some element RNG, and although I don't agree with it, I get it, and I think that it is kind of one of the more lessers. If maybe they could introduce some more substantial sets, maybe some harder to acquire sets. Think maybe like the Divine sets. That could be interesting. Even though that's also kind of like a blessing and a curse, depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, there's a lot of different things I probably would like quantify might be a little bit more valuable for players to consider accessing. But nevertheless, I think Pinpoint is worth the exploration. So, with that being said, I do want to go ahead and touch bases with Freya, Fate Weaver. We get to finally break down her kit and see what she got going on. Her attacks are going to be based off of defense, which is going to be interesting because she is a force defense legendary champion, especially with how we introduced her. We're going to do a breakdown on her kit and see how good she's going to be or how bad she's going to be. And then we'll also take a look at Odin, which I think we kind of got a little bit of a teaser about. So, for Freya, her A1 attacks all enemies, has a 25% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. Okay, all enemies 25%. Counterattacks with this skill when a shield buff placed by this champion is removed by damage. Occurs once per turn. Damage is increased for the first 2 books, and then of course the chance is increased by another that's 15%. So that is 40% chance to place the provoke when fully booked. So 45. Am I reading that right? 40%, excuse me. 40%. So I feel like that's kind of low for a chance to drop. It's kind of like more on par with like maybe a Husk. It does have an attack all enemies, which is not too bad. The counterattack factor is conditional to her having her own shield. So it's a little bit of a drop / compliment. It's like they stalemate out a little bit, but it is conditional, and that's something to keep in mind, that it has to be her shield and it can only be removed by damage. So that's some 2 caveats that we have to be very aware of. Prismatic Aegis, her A2. It's a 4-turn cooldown by base, but it is bookable down to a 3-turn cooldown. It places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns, but it also places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The value of this shield is proportional to this champion's defense and each target's maximum HP. So, I would say that if it says "and," that being the key pact, it's going to be based off of her shield. So, 2 champions that I can think of right off the rep that have a good increase or a shield that's based off of their own base defense. It's going to, or not base defense, but their champion's defense, proportional being the key word. Falgary, who has a great shield. I think she still might be amongst the best. And then, of course, Helicaf, who has a very, very substantial shield, too, as well. I think maybe even Wixwell has one that's based off of his own defense. I'd have to double-check. But those champions are all very, very strong when it comes to shielding, which is really, really good. Her having the ability to do this based off of her own defense, which is good, but also scale it in addition to the champion's maximum HP. If it goes 1 plus this, that's great. If it's one or the other, then that's kind of interesting, and it might be a little bit less stronger than what we were anticipating. I am inclined to believe it's the former, not the later, so that's actually going to be a pretty good shield, where it's a percentage of the champion's HP, maybe 10%, for example, but it's also along with whatever is the scaling factor of her defense, which is really, really good, because you can manipulate that. Now, Goldweave, her A3 is going to be a 5-turn cooldown, bookable down to a 3-turn cooldown, removes all debuffs from all allies, huge, and places a block debuff on them for 2 turns, huge. So a cleanse and a protection buff, good start. Also fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%, not bad. Base value of most turn meter inclusions are anywhere between like 10 to 15%. Some of the higher ones are maybe up closer towards like 25 to 30%. I think Arbiter, her A3 is a 30% increase. So this is kind of in the middle of the line, maybe a little bit above average, what you would normally expect. So not too bad, but the aspect of behind it, and this is also really, really important. So one thing that's countering, or that has been known to counter, like turn meter boosters outside of just the fact that they're getting turn meter booster, besides getting buffs and whatnot, is Torment. I'll just use that as an example. Now, he's not like top of the line meta or anything like that, but I definitely think that sometimes people introduce that to be more of a deterrent, a little bit more of a nuisance to kind of stopgap the fact that you're going faster than them. Well, she removes buffs first, then places the block debuffs, and the block debuffs, the placement of the buff would trigger Torment, but because this block debuffs, you're not going to get frozen anyways. And then also fills the turn meter after the fact, and I believe that's the order it's going to go in, which means that because you have block debuffs already in play by the time the turn meter's going, if it does trigger by Torment again, you're safe. So, not bad, not bad. That's a great way to kind of make sure everything is in line to be safe. Think about Sify. She's also a turn meter booster and a buffer, but she places block debuff first, increase speed and increase defense, and then, of course, the turn meter after the fact. So, the order is very important, and the fact that it goes in the way that we're talking about is very healthy. So, not bad. She is actually very, very solid, a very complimentary support utility champion. Very, very strong. I like it. Depending on her... I think that since she's only doing one damaging ability, which is our A1, it doesn't seem like we're going to be looking at her as a damage outlet per se, but I think that utility might be very, very strong for us to look into. Now, her Divine Foresight, it's a passive, and it has an active cooldown, so that's something we can keep in mind. The passive side gives increase this champion's defense by 5% each time an ally inflicts a critical hit, so you being offensive, and it stacks up to 50%. So, 10 hits times 5 gives you 50%. So by the time you do 10 hits, think about fights that have Battle of Attritions, or maybe even a PvP scenario where you are going for a more turtle hunker down type effect. She's going to be able to do that ramp up where she's going to have decent defense and complementary to what she already has. And then think about this too. The shield is proportional to her defense, so that's where the synergy locks in. The shield that you would have before is only going to get stronger as your passive is kicking up. So not bad, not bad. The active effect prevents the death of the ally with the highest crit damage except this champion, and keeps them alive with 1 HP when hit with a fatal hit. That is overpowered. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, this effect will only activate once. Then it heals that ally by 20% of their maximum HP and activates an instant turn effect on them. Holy moly. So, think about, let's see, who takes fatal hits? I would say Naze. I'm not exactly sure. It's a 7-Watcher mythic. I want you to think about Galather in his base form. Another mythic. And then, of course, Siegfried, I believe, is also another mythic that has this recent effect where it's like, instead of you straight up just dying from a hit that would normally KO you, it prevents it, or it mitigates that and allows you to have like this bounce back mechanic where you're still in the fight for one more turn, or for one more set of damage hits. And this right here not only prevents it, and it's conditional to whoever has the highest crit damage, which is pretty much going to be your primary damage dealer, then it heals them, then it gives them a turn. That is wild. So, you want to talk about the definition of a true go second champion that allows and enables your team to get in the fight and keep the fight going? This champion's got it. And then, of course, the ally aura that she's going to have is defense in all battles by 30%. Pretty solid standard size of the pack for when it comes to auras. All the auras that are pretty much higher than her, either from a mythic or they are conditional to a specific environment, so a specific area of the game. So, not too bad. I gotta be honest with you, this kit's kind of nasty. For a support champion, this is pretty nasty. Now, there are some ways to counter her, obviously. Like, shields are a lot more counterable nowadays when you have champions like King Narcisse, even champions like Georgid or even Lazarius that ignore shields don't really feel too oppressed by this champion being able to protect them. So, nevertheless, still very, very enabling, and it's very, very strong to allow them to do what they got to do and maybe give your champion that one up that they need to be able to slam. So, I like it. I like it a lot. All right, we also have Odin, Father, our support Void legendary champion, also part of the Barbarians. Very interesting. We are going to be able to access him after the event, as they confirmed. His Sting of Gungnir, I think is how you say the name. We actually found that out after we did our original video that did the breakdown of it, and I talked about his Spear having a special name, which is kind of cool. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. The A1 is going to be an attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a Berserk debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be placed on bosses. Good to know. The chance is increased by another 25%, making it 75% chance whenever it's fully booked with an increase of 10% damage. Storm of Familiars, 4-star cooldown. Removes all buffs from all enemies, a buff strip. Has an 80% chance of placing a 60% decreased debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. It also has an 80% chance of placing a stun debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. And then, of course, these chances are booked up to 100% with the cooldown going from 4 to a 3 when fully booked. Asgardian Judgment. The 4-star, or the 4-turn duration is bookable down to a 3-turn duration. It attacks 1 enemy, but before attacking, it steals all buffs from the target. The damage inflicted by this skill will depend on the target's type, which is interesting, and this is the part that's kind of odd for me. Attack type champions will inflict damage based on the target's attack. The defense will be based off of the target's defense. HP, support, and as well as bosses will be target's maximum HP. So, it's not a scaling factor of Odin, it's going to be based off of the target you're hitting. And this is a singular target hit. Interesting. So you could take the enemy you're going against and take their stats and their values and use it to your advantage against them. Not bad. This attack will also ignore 100% of the target's defense. Busted. Let me tell you that now. Busted. This attack was killed. If the target was killed by this skill, revives a random dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. And of course, it's cooldown reduction with an additional 20% extra damage. That ability could be, if it's the way I'm imagining it, pretty nasty. Now, here's the thing that's kind of interesting about this is that how many times this attack hits an opponent? That's the first thing I'm curious about. The second thing is that even against PvE content, this is where we got to flip it between the areas of where they're valuable at. Boss fights, if it's target's maximum HP, you can look at this guy as another maximum enemy max HP hitter, which is great. And the more times he hits with the ability, the better it is. Think about G-Nut or Chrissy, for example, who hit 2 times or 3 times respectively to each champion. And that makes them valuable for speed farming, as well as being able to do more damage in key areas where there's value. So not bad. I think if we're looking at him in like areas that are boss mechanic oriented, having an AoE decreased defense, so you want multiple targets, think Hydra, not bad. And then of course being able to hit enemy max HP on one singular target could be pretty strong. Of course, there are going to be some caveats about what you already have in your account. If you have someone that does raw damage higher than an enemy max HP, this guy will come down in terms of value for you. But nevertheless, a very interesting ability for the PvP side if you're looking at it too as well. Being able to revive if you kill somebody, ignoring 100% of someone's target defense, which is nuts. Pretty strong. Pretty strong. Odin's Wisdom. Every 9 turns places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn and also applies a buff spread effect, taking all buffs from this champion and placing them on all enemies. Or all allies, excuse me. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So, like, if it's giving him block damage, and that's the only buff he does, or he has, yeah. He's gonna put that block damage across everybody. Now, if he has multiple buffs, because if you look at the second part, it takes all the buffs from this champion and places them on all allies. So no matter what, you're getting every single buff that's on Odin every 9 turns, which could be very, very strong if you incorporate it with things like maybe Heavencast, for example, where you're able to get pretty buff heavy and then spread it. And then imagine somebody extending it, and then extending it, and then extending it. And if something does fall off, spread. Not bad. Not bad at all. That's pretty good value. Gonna have some case uses of where it's gonna be super valuable, but I think this guy could be pretty interesting. Aura. Increase Void ally speed in Arena by 40%. That is the fastest we have in the game. It is conditional to Void ally speed only. So it's not all allies. It's only for Void champions. Now, here's the thing. In both PvP and in PvE, Void champions are very substantial. Some of the meta champions you're used to in certain areas of content, they're Void, believe it or not. Now, there's some extra caveats with Mythics now being in the board that they're starting to rise to prominent because they offer more than just what their base utility provides, or their base damage, or their base kit provides, and they have a whole nother kit that you can exploit and get advantage of, making them very versatile. This is actually kind of nuts. I'll just say it like this. Both of those champions are very, very substantial in what they can provide to the team. That A3 from Odin is going to be the linchpin of whether or not he's going to be super, super strong. Buff strip, not bad. It is polyable. Decreased defense, very polyable. Stun, also very polyable. Berserk, also very polyable. And if you guys didn't hear the earlier part of this video, Berserk allows you to do more damage, but you also take more damage. So this could be like another way to get debuff to make your champions weaker on the enemy side. And then, you know, the person that's going to do the damage to that Berserk, maybe you set up for that, and then boom, he does big damage, and that guy's dead, you know, and that could give you a lot of value in terms of being able to one-tap or you know, bring somebody down to earth and really, like, you know, basically neutralize them out of the fight. So not too bad, man, not too bad at all. I think this is a very, very interesting dynamic that these champions bring to the table. But as always, you guys let me know. What do y'all think? Y'all think these guys are going to be relevant in any particular areas? Let me know. I think we could see them in some key areas. I'm really interested in Valkyrie personally. But with that being said, hopefully the pinpoint experience that we're going to go through here is going to be something that's going to be worthwhile. As always, I am a little pessimistic because of seeing the new drops that are going to be added in addition to pinpoint. But we hold our reservations and our opinions until after we have the chance to experience the content, and I think I recommend that you guys all do that as well. And with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always, always remember, stay ascended.
So